This is the Public Broadcasting Service in Cleveland. You're watching your community television station. This is WVIZ-TV.
Was, historians tell us, the most severe that has ever visited these islands. Birds froze in midair and fell like stones to the ground. At Norwich, a young countrywoman started to cross the road in her usual robust health and was seen by the onlookers to turn visibly to powder and be blown in a puff of dust over the roofs as the icy blast struck her at the street corner. The mortality among sheep and cattle was enormous. Corpses froze and could not be drawn from the sheets. The fields were full of shepherds, ploughmen, teams of horses, and little bird-scaring boys, all struck stark in the act of the moment. One with his hand to his nose, another with a bottle to his lips, a third with a stone raised to throw at the raven who sat as if stuffed upon the hedge within a yard of him. The severity of the frost was so extraordinary that a kind of petrifaction sometimes ensued, and it was commonly supposed that the great increase of rocks in some parts of Derbyshire was due to no eruption, for there was none, but of the solidification of unfortunate wayfarers who had been literally turned to stone where they stood. But while the country people suffered the extremity of want, and the trade of the country was at a standstill, London enjoyed a carnival of the utmost brilliancy. The new king seized the opportunity that his coronation had given him to curry favor with the citizens by directing that the river, which was frozen to a depth of 20 feet or more, for 6 or 7 miles on either side, be swept, decorated, and given all the semblance of a park or pleasure ground, with arbors, mazes, alleys, drinking booths, etc., at his expense. Railed off from the public only by a silken rope, the pleasure ground became at once the center of the most brilliant society. Nothing could exceed the brilliance and gaiety of the scene by day. But it was at night that the carnival was at its merriest. The moon and stars blazed with the hard fixity of diamonds, and to the fine music of the flute and the trumpet, the courtiers danced. Orlando, it is true, was none of those who tread lightly the Coranto and the La Volta. He was clumsy and a little absent-minded. He had indeed just brought his feet together about 6 in the evening of the 7th of January, at the finish of some such quadrille or minuet, when he beheld, coming from the Muscovite embassy, a figure which, whether boy's or woman's, for the loose tunic and trousers of the Russian fashion served to disguise the sex, filled him with the highest curiosity. The person, whatever the name or sex, was about middle height, very slenderly fashioned, and dressed entirely in oyster-colored velvet, trimmed with some unfamiliar greenish-colored fur. But these details were obscured by the extraordinary seductiveness which issued from the whole person. Images, metaphors of the most extreme and extravagant, twined and twisted in his mind. He called her a melon, a pineapple, an olive tree, an emerald, and a fox in the snow, all in the space of 3 seconds. He did not know whether he had heard her, tasted her, seen her, or all 3 together. Finally, the unknown skater came to a standstill. She was not a hand's breadth away. She was a woman.
Auriez-vous la bonté de me passer le sel?
She asked.
Avec le plus grand plaisir, madame.
He replied, speaking French with a perfect accent. Name he found was Princess Marushka Stanislavska Dagmar Natasha Ilyana Romanovich. And she had come in the train of the Muscovite ambassador, who was her uncle perhaps, or perhaps her father, to attend the coronation. Orlando and Sasha, as he called her for short, and because it was the name of a white Russian fox he'd had as a boy, a creature soft as snow, but with teeth of steel, which bit him so savagely that his father had it killed, would talk of everything under the sun, of sights and travels, of Moor and pagan, of this man's beard and that woman's skin, of a face, of a feather. Nothing was too small for such converse. Nothing was too great. But in all she said, however open she seemed and voluptuous, there was something hidden on all she did. However daring, there was something concealed. So the green flame seems hidden in the emerald, or the sun imprisoned in a hill. The clearness was only outward. Within was a wandering flame. It came, it went. At last, the play was ended. All had grown dark. But it was such a night as this that they had waited for. It was on such a night as this that they had planned to fly. At midnight, they would meet at an inn near Blackfriars. Horses waited there. Everything was in readiness for their flight. Suddenly, he was struck in the face by a blow, soft, yet heavy, on the side of his cheek. So strung with expectation was he that he started and put his hand to his sword. The blow was repeated 12 times on forehead and cheek. The dry frost had lasted so long that it took him a minute to realize that these were raindrops falling. The blows were the blows of the rain. At first they fell slowly, deliberately, one by one. But soon the 6 drops became 60, then 600, then ran themselves together in a steady spout of water. It was as if the hard and consolidated sky poured itself forth in one profuse fountain. In the space of 5 minutes, Orlando was soaked to the skin. Some blind instinct, for he was past reasoning, must have driven him to take the river bank in the direction of the sea. For when the dawn broke, which it did with unusual suddenness, the sky turning a pale yellow, and the rain almost ceasing, he found himself on the banks of the Thames, off Wapping. Now a sight of the most extraordinary nature met his eyes. Amazed and astounded, Orlando could do nothing. Sometimes was the appalling race of horses as it hurled itself past him. At last, seeming to recollect himself, he clapped spurs to his horse and galloped hard along the river bank in the direction of the sea. Rounding a bend of the river, he came opposite that reach where not 2 days ago the ships of the ambassadors had seemed immovably frozen. Hastily, he made count of them all, the French, the Spanish, the Austrian, the Turk. All still floated. But the Russian ship was nowhere to be seen.